In my mind, you are probably one of the most innovative leaders that I've met. How we are using video to drive consumer engagement and commerce across multiple stages of the purchase journey.
In our journey, I think what really struck me was this entire idea of coming up with video commerce at scale and easy to plug in.
If we are able to serve them the right content at the right place at the right time, then I think magic happens. That content gets served to me immediately when I'm there with an intent to buy, then the conversion is going to be significantly faster.
They're getting far more information within 10 seconds or even less. How do I go about making sure that this young lady is able to get content in Arabic in a way she understands, help her check out in the right way? And then that brings the more smoothen your user journey, the easier it is for them to keep coming back to you. This was my purpose, to enable a young mom to transact. I have given her all these tools, and now I'm also making it easier for her. And that's where the consumer stickiness keeps coming. One of the metrics that we should definitely track is repeat views on and repeat purchases from consumers who are coming through the video commerce platform.
Almost 7.5% conversion rate, an engagement rate of about 21%. And we have seen this across the board. And overall, we saw about $188,000 worth of lift in sales. Hello everyone, I'm Kaizad. I'm the founder and CEO of Swirl. And today we are having Dharmendra on our 4th episode of the Commerce Connection. Dharmendra, thank you so much for giving me your time today.
It's always a pleasure talking to you, Kaizad. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast.
You and I have known each other for almost a year now.
Yes.
And I think in my mind, you are probably one of the most innovative leaders that I've met. When we started our journey to try to enter the Middle East market, I was lucky enough to get introduced to you by one of our mentors. And back then, I remember as soon as we mentioned about how we are using video to drive consumer engagement and commerce across multiple stages of the purchase journey, you were the first ones to jump in and tell me that, this is exactly what we are looking for, and we would like to integrate this into your product. So I would love to, before we can get into that, I would love to get you to share your journey and your experience so far. Tell the folks who are watching this, who is Dharmendra?
Great. I think thank you for that. You're very kind, Kaizad, with your words. I think I'm a product of the Indian tech ecosystem, and
Yes.
and my confidence on that entire ecosystem is very, very high. So I'm always have high hopes of people like yourself coming with a lot of innovative ideas, products, finding product market gaps, and then getting products that fit. So, and I think part of my journey has been from, over 25 years doing retail in India with a fashion brand called Raymond for the first 8-9 years of my career. Then I moved to Future Group, which is a retail conglomerate in India. I headed operations for a brand called Central, which is a seamless mall concept, and then category management for Brand Factory, which is a brand service concept. And then moved into e-commerce. So when fortunate to move to Flipkart in the days when fashion as a business was launching, did various roles within the organization, grew from head of fashion to heading a part of the marketplace business, then building externalization of our logistics business capabilities. And for the last 6 odd years, I've been in the GCC, first with a startup called Mom's World, which is a mother-baby website, and then build their operations for them, and then moved to heading CureFit, which is a health startup. And unfortunately, COVID caused it to close down. And then for the last 3 odd years, I've been with a retailer here who manage multiple portfolio of multiple brands across home and furniture, mother, baby, fashion business. And I had e-commerce for them. So part of that journey is innovation on the digital side, which is own websites, marketplaces, and in-store features like click and collect, etc. So that's where I come from. And in our journey, I think what really struck me was this entire idea of coming up with video commerce at scale and easy to plug in, right? I think that was where the entire conversation. So whenever you go to an organization which is new in its journey for digitalization, it's very difficult to get ideas or products which fit in very easily with very less dev effort at our end. And I think that was the striking conversation that we had. We said, if it's possible within our current infrastructure, how can we, on top of it, layer it with new technology that will give us the impetus that we want for our business in its early stages. Then that's how the conversation went. And as always, Kaizad, I found you to be there to solve problems for us. And you said, okay, this is a problem statement. This is how we can figure it out for you. So,
yeah, no, I mean, when we started, we realized that, during a consumer journey, there are so many attention gaps that exist, right? I mean, why would 98% of the traffic coming to your website not convert? It was just bothering me so much, me and my team, of course. And when we started finding these attention gaps, we figured out a lot of problem statements that exist today is essentially because consumers don't have the same confidence to buy online like they do in store, because the trust is not getting built, not the trust in the brand, but trust in their buying journey. There's nobody to assist, there's nobody to answer their queries, there's no ready information available, but you get all of that with human touch offline. That's why today even retail is, globally speaking, about 90% of the market. E-commerce is still less than 10%. And we feel that this gap can be plugged in with a video-led approach. So I think that's how the journey started for Swirl. But given your tremendous experience in the baby care, mother care, and home care category, where Swirl got its first client in the Middle East, all thanks to you, I would love to learn and kind of know your view on what made you take this plunge, besides obviously supporting the tech startups from India, which I know you've been gracious enough. But I think I do remember that you had an innate reason and an innate understanding of the consumer journey, and based on that, you had a very strong opinion on why an innovative solution like video commerce, which is not omnipresent yet today, that you wanted to integrate into your business.
Yeah, I think two major reasons, right? One, like you rightly touched upon, saying conversion is a big challenge. And what does it take for a brand or a business to become more relevant in a consumer's buying journey? Today, we are all in that state where we have a large funnel of online presence where we figure out which consumers are going through what journey and how they're coming to our website or app, and then what is their journey onwards. I think finding relevant products is, like you rightly said, very difficult from only specification perspective. The more easier, so the starting point of that conversation was one of our customers, who is also a business partner, reached out at 11 p.m. saying, I have a baby in my arm who's a toddler, and I'm trying to order something on your app, and it's very difficult to find the specification. And that is the starting point, is saying, what can we do to help this young mother in figuring out what is the right way to, or the easiest way for her to click and check out.
Right.
And that's when we started figuring out what are new innovative ways, what can be done. And that's when we coincidentally met.
Amazing.
And you showed us this technology where you could have a video where you could add to cart directly.
Yes.
Which meant we could probably within 10 or 15 seconds explain the entire product to a consumer in a very easy manner. So things like, if it was a sterilizer, how can you actually clean the bottle with one hand, and then also while you're still holding a baby. So we are able to demonstrate a lot of that.
Amazing.
From a business point of view. If it was a stroller, then you could actually do, it was one hand motion for picking up and closing, etc. So, or if it was a cabin friendly stroller, then it was so easy to put it into a cabin, right? So while you're traveling. So
it's impossible to communicate all this through images and text.
Exactly. So no matter how many banners we put, how many images we moved from 4 images to 6 images to specifications and dimensions, but they're all two-dimensional, right? So very difficult to understand. But when you put it in that third dimension of a video experience, I think engagement went up. And I think that was one of our key achievements, right? Where our engagement on those products went up, where you saw views, we saw them coming up. And I think in that journey, some of our feedback also, which you were also gracious enough to kind of immediately incorporate into the product and say, if we want to not move to the next video, but actually move to checkout as a process, then how do you build it? How do you kind of go to the next logical step of the consumer and help them easily check out from that page itself? I think that really helped. And that's where I think the collaboration really works, right? And when you have a problem statement and you have two like-minded teams working towards solving, I think that's how most success has been built so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've also realized that during a consumer journey, if we are able to serve them the right content at the right place at the right time, then I think magic happens. So as you rightly said, I have come to the website with a intention to buy, but I don't know if what I'm looking for is something that I can get over here. Now, while I'm watching a video, if that content gets served to me immediately when I'm there with an intent to buy, then the conversion is going to be significantly faster. Otherwise, I'll just exit the PDP page and I'll go to maybe an Instagram or a YouTube or your competitor. So we have also done some exit analysis of traffic coming to your website, and you'll be surprised to know, Dharmendra, that about close to average 37% of your website traffic, which is coming to your PDP pages, your product detail pages, which is all high intent traffic, by the way. It's not bounce traffic, right? 37% of your high intent traffic exits to your competitor website, which means you're losing almost 40% of the potential business.
Potential business, yeah, absolutely. No, I think, and that's so from a user journey perspective also, right? Because the world is also so competitive. So if you again go back to the basics of retail, which is service, selection, and price, I think when selection and price are, when service is not a differentiator anymore, then between selection and price, the game really changes, right? And therefore, and especially when now the journeys have started online first and then going into stores, it is even more important that consumers find a reason to be sticky with you, right?
Right.
So it comes with a lot of features. So it's not just probably explaining a product, but how fast can you deliver it? What is that service experience? What are your payment methods? How are you offering, newer ways of, buy now, pay later, etc. So how robust is your channel or platform, and how much? So it's very simple. If you're going to save a consumer time, they're going to shop with you. If you're going to make them wait 20 minutes to go through a checkout process, they will not be with you. And I think, like you rightly said, people or consumers who go through that journey, go to a product description page, but don't complete the process. I think a large part of that selection, which is available either at an alternate competitor at a better price or better service, is how that metric flows, right? So it's important for businesses to kind of keep building on this all the time. There's no one silver bullet that actually will solve for conversion or order value. I think for video commerce, I think the advantage is it solves for both. So typically what happens is when you put in a conversion lever, your order values go down because you get a number of orders. Versus if you try to push too much on the order values, if you try to sell too many sofas through your video commerce, then your conversions go down. So the advantage of video commerce is it helps you push both, because one is high intent traffic. Consumers who want to make a purchase are looking at the relevant products. They're getting far more information within 10 seconds or even less. And while the objective for people is to serve content in less than 2 seconds, but I think any decision making that needs to happen needs at least 6 to 10 seconds, and that's why I think those formats really will be the long term ones, because for a human brain to actually make a decision out of, unless you're a fighter pilot or you're a cruise, probably he will not make those 2 second decisions, but you will need 6 to 10 seconds to make a buying purchase decision, right?
Correct.
So, giving that ample time is really important, and that's how we kind of build that.
And now we are going, as a company, we're going one step forward and figuring out, can we make that content contextually relevant in the buyer journey using AI, of course. So and if I can serve a contextually relevant content to the consumer, and I can serve different content to different kind of consumers, again at the right place at the right time in the consumer journey, then I think the conversion will also increase significantly. Having said that, I wanted to ask you follow up on the two questions. And sorry, I'm just drilling into business. But I think a lot of folks watching this, want to kind of learn the nitty-gritty of scaling the e-commerce piece, right? Because a lot of people have already spoken about top of the funnel and how do you solve the problem for that. I think fundamentally the biggest leakages that I have personally witnessed is in the middle of the funnel. right? Not even in the bottom of the funnel, because, ultimately bottom of the funnel becomes a byproduct of whatever, consumer engagements that happen in the middle of the funnel. So, in that middle of the funnel, one of the biggest problem statements is obviously, finding information about the product at the right place at the right time. But the second big problem statement that we've also observed is the ability to build social proof.
Correct.
And we, early in the days, that used to happen through, text-based reviews and ratings, right? You could just go to what other people are saying. But again, right now, there are like literally thousands and thousands of reviews. How many reviews are you going to watch? And again, reviews don't do justice in form of a text format. Besides telling you how was the, after sales service, or how was the delivery, and so on and so forth. If you really want to understand the practical application of a product, it becomes very difficult. And I think that's where UGC can play a huge role in building. So, and we were just talking about that. As a company, we have already built a very successful video UGC / video reviews technology solution. And we've implemented that for brands like LG in the US, HP, Sony, etc., wherein we are replacing their text reviews into a video reviews, which is all powered through UGC.
Right.
I would love to know from you that, do you think that inside the consumer journey, in order to reduce the attention gaps and in order to reduce the breakages, having a video UGC on the PDP pages where it has high intent traffic could be a game changer?
Absolutely. I think so. There are two parts of this, right? One is the e-commerce business itself. It is no longer a two-dimensional business of supply and demand. It is becoming more and more behavioral. So if you look at how the universe or the ecosystem of digital commerce is moving, it is becoming more and more behavioral. So both Google, Meta are now serving consumers based on their behaviors, on their patterns. What time of day do they shop? How much time do they consume? What are their metrics? And therefore, when you kind of plug into that ecosystem, then you also need to start understanding your consumers from a behavior perspective. And therefore, this entire impetus of figuring out who are my consumers, what ethnicity, what are their times of shopping, how do they work. So the more intelligence you bring to your platform from a consumer perspective, and then you try and match that with what's happening in the larger sphere of e-commerce, I think that's where you find the right sweet spot of how do you build your funnel. So what's true in the funnel for a mother baby business may not be true for a home and furniture category business. And then how do you kind of understand that and intelligently position yourself for different brands at different points of time, right? So that's how you look at it at an e-commerce perspective. And your second part of the question, UGC, I think social proof has remained largely, for some of these metrics are very business-facing metrics. So 4.9 rating out of 5 is a very inward-looking metric versus actually saying that, there is 5 million consumers who've tasted food on my platform, for example. And that really is where the power of, social proof comes in. UGC is very specific in certain use cases where, you have a very niche requirement for somebody to say that, I used this car, or I use this probably coffee maker, and it saved me time, it saved me effort to getting my favorite coffee in the least possible time. I think then it becomes really relevant. But there could be a lot of product categories where it may not be relevant. So it's about being choosy about what brands / categories that you want to invest in UGC, because it also comes at a cost, right? So, and when you put a large cost back into the business, I think as a proportion of your overall cost, I think that's where most of the times businesses will tend to ignore UGC. But if you look at it saying that, out of, if I was doing say probably 100,000 products, of which I needed my top 1,000 products to have UGC backed rating mechanism, then that really is the starting point. Of course, once the business scales and the world scales to that level where UGC becomes almost at a cost, at a per content basis, it becomes really affordable, then I think it'll reach a stage where everything becomes UGC. But today, for the next 12 to 18 months at least, I see that brands who are very exclusive in their category and want to bring in those niche experiences should definitely look at UGC for those for their top 20% products, which need to have a 360-degree view from a consumer point of view, right? So whether it is a social proof, whether it is dimensions, the right product videos, the right PDPs, the entire experience of easy checkout, all of that needs to come together, and the cherry on the cake will be UGC.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned about the cost efficiency, because some of our clients have now started to figure out a way for them to get their customers to submit video reviews, rather than the creators or an influencer reviewing a product. It's their own customers who are submitting reviews, and that comes at a fraction of a cost.
Correct. I think that's how innovative businesses will go forward. I think largely when you are owning a P&L, you always look at cost versus what it can actually get you. So it's always a challenge, I think, and that's one of the challenges specifically for the region.
Tell me this, before we move on to the next question, I want to know from you, somebody who is trying to scale their purchase funnel, or trying to improve their conversions and engagements on their website or apps, what kind of tools can they use to improve their understanding of the consumer journey? You mentioned, so many aspects about building that consumer intelligence layer as a part of your e-commerce stack, and I think that's one thing that majority of the brands I know, especially in the who are in their early days, they are missing that. It's all about how do I reduce my CAC. Most of the people are just talking about how do I reduce my CAC and how do I get more return on my ad spend. But I mean, that's not a fundamentally strong way to build a business, right? There's some, I forgot the name, but somebody very wise has said that it is 3 times more expensive to acquire a new customer than to retain an existing customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if there is already an audience coming to your website with an intent to buy or shop or window shop, whatever, and you have a decent number of customer base already, what can you do to build that consumer intelligence layer, tools and technologies that can help you, help them keep coming back, help you increase the conversions?
Right. I think very good point. And this is a struggle in all businesses, irrespective of their size. I think everyone struggles with this at some point of time, more than others. But when you look at cost, this is always a boardroom discussion when we say cost versus investment, right? So which bucket do you want to put this cost into? So, but if you look at it from a very, if you take a step back and look at the entire business plan of any brand, and you say, in my user journey, of course, I'm here to make revenue and profit. That is not questionable at all. But what is my purpose of the brand? If I'm seeing a market gap, then my purpose of this brand, say it's a mother baby brand, is to help young Arab moms find the best products for their children. Now that is my uber goal. Now what do I need to do to enable this entire brand experience, whether it is in store or online? How do I go about making sure that this young lady is able to get content in Arabic in a way she understands, help her check out in the right way? And then that brings, so the more you smoothen your user journey, the easier it is for them to keep coming back to you. It becomes habit eventually, right? And like we now we say, just Google it. We don't say search this word for me. What is this term? Or in India we used to say Flipkart kar lo. They just shop on Flipkart, right? So those things are where the world is moving to. I think that's where we see that's the way businesses have to get built. But from a product perspective, I think it's very important for even new businesses to engage in tools which actually protect their brand from drop-offs at various levels. And second, so things like probably CRM tools which give you a pop-up every time you're trying to exit. and just kind of, nudge you saying, you left something in the
Give
cart.
some examples.
So for example, you could look at, drop off on the desktop if somebody's trying to close the browser. You put a pop-up and say, hey, are you sure you want to pop up? Or if you left something in the cart, then there needs to be a proper messaging that comes to you at that particular time. Now, it has to be rule-based. It can't be, 7 a.m. you're getting messages saying, please check out now. Versus actually understanding when Kaizad actually prefers to check out, complete his checkout process. In how many days does he check out? Some products are immediate, quick commerce products. You want them in 2 hours. But there are some products where you spend time in that journey. So if you're buying a sofa, for example, and you're spending time across various websites figuring out which one do you want to buy, and then you go to stores, you feel the product, you come back, and then eventually say, okay, maybe e-commerce has a better price, I'm going to just buy this from. And that's when you need to understand how this consumer is behaving, where they are. I think CDP is one of the most important tools that every business needs to have, irrespective of their stage of life. Of course, it is an investment, not a cost. So when you put that in place, then you start building all of these. And so the sooner you start profiling your consumers, understanding them better, and then of course there are CRM tools that you need to kind of enable. Once you get all of these in place, that's when you then get ready for actually bringing in that high intent consumer and giving them the experience that's wow, which is where I think layers of video of commerce, Swirl of course comes in, right? Saying so I'm sure Kaizad wants me to say the word Swirl like loud. So it comes in, and that's where that engagement from an already evolved consumer comes through, right? And then you complete that funnel for your business and say, this was my purpose, to enable a young mom to transact. I have given her all these tools, and now I'm also making it easier for her. And that's where the consumer stickiness keeps coming, and they keep coming at you for more and more, right? So one of the metrics that we should definitely track is repeat views on and repeat purchases from consumers who are coming through the video commerce platforms. And that kind of also proves your theory of it is cheaper to retain a consumer than to acquire.
No, absolutely. And I think also there's a very good phrase that we learned, that all brands have to figure out how to first create a magic moment, and then they have to figure out how to create the habit moment. So I think and in order to create the magic moment, obviously I think video commerce or video-led consumer engagement can play a big role, and using the right technology tools like CRMs, CDPs can create that habit moment.
Yes. Very rightly put. I think very nice way to put it actually.
So in having said that, tell me this: what other innovations should a brand or a marketer think about today that they can leverage? There's a lot of talk happening on the AI piece, and we ourselves are also building a bunch of cool AI stuff, which is not a nice to have, but a must have, right? Because there's a lot of nice to have wrappers of AI today for technology solutions, but must have, is something that is missing. I'll tell you what we are trying to do, and then maybe you can share what you feel is the big gap in the market, which currently can be solved, and which are the gaps that you feel are not yet solved, so that marketers or brands can start thinking about that. And it's, as you rightly said, it's very important to zoom out. Otherwise, you get in the rat race of only focusing on that. Where is that extra dollar coming? How are we going to make profit? But you have to zoom out, do a little bit of innovation thinking, invest ahead of the time, so that you can reap 10x benefits or get that 10x delta 2-3 years down the line, right? So in that said, do you have an opinion on what AI tools and technologies can brands use today? For example, what we are doing is that we have built a very strong AI-based sentiment analysis inside the video. So you can, let's say somebody submits a video, it's a UGC content or a customer review, then you can exactly know what is the customer saying, what kind of review are they publishing, it can summarize it, build a transcript around it, and give you the overall sentiment score along with the pros and cons. and then a consumer can use that information to search inside the video. So it's like an in-video search. So let's say I'm looking for a furniture product which is having teak wood, for example, and at least it's a 20-year-old kind of a teak wood for it. Then I don't want to go through all the product page information. I want to see what is the experience of somebody else talking about that product. I don't want to know what Amitabh Bachchan is saying. I want to know what Dharmendra is saying, what Kaizad is saying. Regular people who have purchased it, and whether they have experienced that. So I think that in-video search will really help to get that sentiment analysis, and again, deliver the right content at the right time in their consumer journey. And second, also what we are building is the entire contextual recommendation of video using AI.
Right.
So again, understanding the consumer journey, finding attention gaps, and based on that, displaying the right content in form of video pop-ups or UGC reviews at the right place at the right time on the right page is also what we are trying to build. But it's a long road ahead. We need to do a lot more. So would love to know from you.
Yeah, no, I think it's for most people it's just the buzzword that's AI. In my head, I still haven't figured out what's AI. To me, everything is ML. Right now, we're still in machine learning stages. We're creating a lot of models that utilize large sets of data and then give us inferences, at least from a business point of view. From a technology innovation point of view, because I'm not actually building those technological innovations, I may not have too many inputs for you. But from a business perspective, when we're looking at ML today, that's where a large set of our data, consumer behavior, supplier behavior, employee behavior, all of it is going into a large data lake. And then how do we start building algorithms which understand these behaviors? They predict what's going to happen, what is churn of consumers, what is churn of suppliers, what's going to happen. We predictably work with them on forecasting their volumes that they can supply to us, right? So when you start building all of these, I think it's still in that predictive analysis, data lakes / ML space for most businesses. From a very specific e-commerce perspective, I think there is a lot of content getting generated, which is through AI / ML, which is things like if there's a, like you said, that teak wood example. If I can get a photograph created for it in 5 seconds using AI, then that's where the focus is today. But from a leapfrogging into the future and saying, this is what it's going to look like, I think most experiments have been at AR / VR level, where you're trying to put a product into a room or you're trying to, create some of those. But that's very superficial. I think that's where most brands are today. But people actually figuring out what the next steps, what the double click of this is going to be, I think it's still learning stage.
And that brings me to the next follow-up question. I think, why do you think a lot of brands end up not investing in innovative technology solutions, right? Like, where do these budgets come from? Because when you're having this board level discussion, it's all about ROI kitna hai, right? Profit kitna hai. But we are at a stage, think about it. Again, I don't want to use, I know this is obviously a very, let's say, skewed example, but it's still an example, and you can kind of extrapolate this example and just look at any innovation. But let's look at OpenAI. They spent 7-8 years investing into this product, and now it has become extremely omnipresent. Everybody, you can't imagine a world without it. And it's starting to help businesses, professionals, individuals save a lot more time, if not make more money, right? But at least it is helping you save more time, and money, saving time is money saved, right? And we have seen a lot of forward-thinking brands, including the likes of Tesla, for example, or any consumer brand, so many, including Nike, for example, who have invested ahead of its time into innovations, largely brand innovations, not just product innovations, right? Brand innovations, consumer experience innovations. Apple, which is done beautifully in terms of consumer experience innovation, design innovations, and then has reaped the benefits 10-fold, 20-fold, 5 years later, 3 years later. But a lot of brands are reluctant to do that today. And hence it becomes very difficult for innovators such as yourself and marketers to come up with these forward-thinking innovations and solutions. What do you think? How can we navigate this problem so it can help brands become more future ready?
I think you put me in the controversial seat now. There is no way to answer this but be straight. So I think the challenge is for most brands, they don't see technology as core to the business. Technology is actually a support function versus actually technology being a key part of your strategy. Most brands who are successful, there could be sports brands who actually call themselves Under Armour calls itself a technology company which is building sports wear, right? So it's about how do you see the use of technology. I think most followers brands utilize a copy-paste mechanism, say let somebody else give me a social proof of saying, yes, this worked for me, and then I'm going to copy-paste that, versus actually using technology and thinking ahead of the curve. Like, for example, last year we won an award saying best technology adopter.
Yeah.
You were part of that conversation, right?
Yes.
You were one of the brands we highlighted.
Thank you. Yeah.
When I think that comes when you're looking at, and that is where my belief in this tech ecosystem is very large, where brands, where they start adopting technology as their first resource and they start building teams according to that, then I think that's where success comes from. I'm sure you've seen a lot of examples in the region as well where you talk to business people who are talking tech first.
Yeah.
Then I think that's where you'll find them doing leading edge work. One of the challenges always is cost, but the way to work on it is as long as you find partners who can give you small use cases to work on, prove it, and then actually say this works. Now let's extrapolate this to a larger business model, to a group level, and then that's how it really grows, right? So it takes slightly longer, but as long as you are working with folks who are able to kind of give you that direction and say, okay, in the next 3 to 5 years, this is where my business needs to go. This is what technology is going to play as a role. And with this stack, what technologies are going to help me get to my goals fastest, and then you come up with that grid and share it with everyone, and then that's how you kind of. So I think thought leadership on the digital side is really important. As long as you are not looking at yourself as a corporate IT function, only sourcing suppliers and technologies, versus actually thinking from a business strategy perspective, saying this is what technologies are going to take me forward, what can help me upscale my business. Most of the times reviews end up on so much product came, so much sold, this was the margin. But versus actually saying, this is how my next 2 to 5 years is going to look like. This is what we are going to need to, simple example of checkout. If I want my customers to check out faster, what are the top 3 technologies I need to be working on and get them? If I needed UGC, then what are the top 3 brands which will help me build social proof for my business, right? And then you work on those engagements, and that's how you build it.
Yeah, and that makes me think. Today, when you take an idea to the board or to the management of any company, let's say an idea of using technology to improve the consumer journey and eventually improve retention outcomes, engagements. Largely, the decision making revolves around where these budgets are going to come from, right? Of course, there's an ROI perspective that needs to be discussed and fair. That's all. Of course, that needs to be factored in. At the end of the day, bottom line counts. But largely, right now, the budgets are all, there are very standardized budgeting that is happening in an organization. There are marketing budgets, sales budgets, and so on and so forth. Usually we have seen that decision makers or management tries to bucket any such new ideas and categories into the marketing budget, especially for consumer experience. Do you think there is a very, and that's why see once you put it into the marketing budget, then you start measuring the success based on marketing KPIs,
Correct.
which are not the right KPIs.
Very true.
So if the KPIs that you're tracking are not right, then how are you ever going to know whether this is working for you or not? And that is the fundamental reason why even sometimes an organizations try to, or maybe there are leaders like you who try to come up with new ideas. Maybe they get implemented halfway and then 3-4 months or 6 months later they get pushed out because the matrix or the KPIs did not match, but the KPIs that they were tracking were themselves not right.
Correct.
In the first place. So do you think then there is an increasing need for organizations to rethink their budgets and have a completely different budget called innovation budget
Yeah.
to make themselves future ready, so that then there is no such question asked only on, okay, what is the immediate ROI that I'm going to get? Because you can't expect, I mean, either you can get an immediate ROI or you can get a 10x delta 3 years later.
Correct.
It's a decision you need to make, right? Long-term versus short-term investment. What do you think? Should organizations restructure their thinking and budgets? Because I was speaking to the other day a chief innovation officer of TVS Motors, Abhay. Before this podcast, we sat down with him and he mentioned this something very, very unique way to think, that the budgets that he was able to carve out for, and again, just like you, he won the best e-commerce, like best innovation in e-commerce category award in the automobile segment.
Amazing.
Because of Swirl, and he credited the entire success story to Swirl. And about 15% of their entire bookings for their vehicle came through Swirl.
Right.
And they did not even expect this, by the way. They were expecting 5%.
Right.
But when he was talking to the management there, the budgets came out from the innovation budget side.
Right.
And he had to fight it, right?
Yes.
Because as you rightly said, a lot of organizations are not tech, fundamentally not tech driven. What do you have to say? And if this is very important, I think this should become a very important conversation in CXO meetings, in all the events that we go to.
Correct.
What are we, like, how much innovation budget are we?
Yeah, I think a very good point. And I think one of the challenges is that when most businesses are mapping out, the P&L owner is usually, like you said, struggling between cost, ROI, ROAS, and
Right.
these metrics. But innovation is a habit, it's a culture. It's
Beautiful
top
said.
down, right?
Well said.
Innovation does not mean the moonshot ideas, but it means every day how can I come and make my processes simpler for my customers, for my suppliers, for my employees. And that's where innovation comes, right? So when you start building your organization according to that, that's when it happens. So from a culture shift, I'm seeing it happen everywhere. Every organization is going through that process where they're becoming more innovation friendly per se. However, from a reality of on-ground position, there are realities of businesses where they are struggling between saving themselves today and growing from there, right? So, usually I've seen in high-performance brands, like I've been fortunate to work with very successful retailers and e-commerce companies, which were scaling up very fast. Now, their innovation was coming every day. Now, some people call it jugaad and some people call it innovation, but it was the way how you think, how you enable your teams to think, come up with ideas. Those are also innovations, right? So how do you kind of build that into the DNA of the organization is very important, and that comes top down. So that's where the leadership teams really play an important role. It is about understanding where to get budgets from is something which every business owner or P&L owner always has a challenge, and they will keep figuring out. Somebody could come up with a view saying, okay, let's put this into marketing budgets for today, and then we'll figure out how it goes. Versus somebody who is like really clear about saying, no, this is our technology, and my business owns this P&L, including my technology costs. Today, my technology costs are 5 tools. Now they're going to grow to 6 or 7, and these are the KPIs they want to drive. And I think from a clarity perspective, it's very important to be very clear on what KPIs you're driving. So if your KPIs are conversion, then you hold everyone true to conversion as your KPI, not revenue. And that's where you start seeing movement and, ability. One of the other challenges of short-term, there is also this entire philosophy of fail fast. So when something that doesn't work for you, then you realize in 2 or 3 months it's not working. I think in my experience, it's always worked where you realize that this is something that's not working well for you. It's a proven use case. It works everywhere, but maybe it doesn't work for you. Then you rather take those decisions sooner than later. So that's where you will find a lot of, and I've seen retail groups in the region who are highly experimentative. They will work with you. Name a technology, they are working with them in some form or the other. However, it's about understanding what it does for you, because one of the other challenges of technology leaders is that there is so many people coming with innovations and everyone wants to work with them, everyone wants to try out. It is also important to give them that opportunity to, figure out how can you work on a small project, see it proves for you, because everyone sends, they say, best salespeople to the pitch, right? But proof of the pudding is in the eating. So when you get onto the table and you actually start working with them, both sides get their hands dirty, and then you realize, this really works. This is a team that will work. And that's where I think innovation leads to that partnership, and then you start working together more closely, right? So I think that's how it is.
So talking about the innovation part, I would love to know from you, when we implemented video commerce, what were the KPIs and metrics that you were personally tracking on? Because I got to learn from my team that, we were able to help achieve overall almost 7.5% conversion rate. Typically 1 or 2% is the conversion rate, but we were able to 4x that.
Connect.
After implementing our video commerce, inside your organization. We were able to give you, demonstrate an engagement rate of about 21%. And we have seen this across the board. We have seen engagement rates as low as 8% to as high as 34%. And overall, we saw about $188,000 worth of lift in sales. So these were the numbers that we were tracking, but would love to know from you as a marketeer, as an innovation leader inside an organization, what metrics were you tracking and reporting it back, to the management?
Yeah, so I think for us, the most important factor was this was a very key feature for us. So if you look at it from where it sat on the website, it was in a prime location, right? So immediately after your top banners, which is your real estate.
The second fold
homepage is where these videos sit. And we were very clear that we wanted to drive conversions and sales of specific products. So for us, for example, if for one of our brands, strollers was a key category, then increasing stroller sales from X to Y, or X plus 10 or X plus 20 was the Uber goal.
Super.
And then we kind of utilized that, saying that all our videos, say if we were able to take 5 videos at a time, then 3 of those would be stroller videos. Each of them would be talking about content which came, of course we were not doing UGC at the time, but we were doing our own content creation, our own branded content, where we were fortunate to have a journey of entire product life cycle, right? So from the time a baby is born to the time the baby grows to be about 24 months, we were able to visualize all of that in videos and then utilize it in that journey, right? So even as consumers were kind of growing in that sense, the video content was automatically also kind of keeping in pace with them, right? So you were going through that journey with consumers, and there were metrics of how the first video should perform versus how the second, the third, fourth, fifth, right? So then that gave us real estate, and so when it also at some point of time there was a conversation of also monetizing it, right? Saying if you're working with brand partners who are selling their products or wares, then how do you kind of utilize that as a sales channel for them as well, and then how do you make that brand popular on your website? So a lot of those, but I think core views, conversions, and then ultimately final revenue was really, I think we did not put ROAS as a KPI to it because it was not our marketing budget. It was our technology budget for sure.
Right.
But of course from a
but also the category lift is an interesting way to think about it, because then you are focused on the either underperforming or the category that you want to perform.
Correct.
And you're tracking that specific category KPIs, which also means that one of the KPI could be product discovery.
Yes.
Through this video journey, how much product discovery happened for that category?
Absolutely. I think, and that's key because if you look at, especially a business like Mother Baby, where the assortment is probably the universe is 300,000 SKUs. Now, every SKU does not need video content, but they may need other dimensions that need to be probably more relevant, right? So, certain products you may just need, check out now immediately kind of a subscription model perhaps could work for certain product categories. But there are certain product categories which are high engagement, where it's very important for the consumer to get a 360-degree view as close as possible to retail experience. And then I think that's where videos really works, right? So for us, it was very clear of what should be on the first video, what should be on the second, what should be third, fourth, fifth, and what are the conversions that we're getting for those products and the uplift in category seconds.
One of the things that we have learned today and I've personally observed is, first of all, I think everybody's aware that today, majority, in fact, 82% of the internet traffic today, as per Cisco, is video. 82%, let that sink in.
Yeah.
Second, what I have personally observed, from the last 8 years in this industry is that all the forward-thinking brands and the brands who are growing very fast are all focusing on content-led growth.
Right.
Which means that content is at the core of their growth strategy. It's like if you are not building a strong content-led growth strategy, then you're a dinosaur.
Yes.
Right. So now, if let's say that hypothesis is true, then what one of the bottlenecks of content creation is also the investment of time, of course, cost. Most importantly, some domain expertise and knowledge, and so on and so forth. How do you foresee that? How have you navigated those challenges in terms of content creation, and what would you advise other brands to kind of navigate this problem statement? Because if we can solve the problem of content creation at scale, then it becomes imperative for them to integrate that into their growth strategy.
Yeah, no, I think very good point. And content has been a struggle for the last 12, 13 years, right? I mean, ever since my early days at Flipkart, when we were launching fashion as a business, we used to get product images from brands. It was the first time we set up a studio, did our own shoots, right, to get products. We had to hire models. And then that entire understanding of what is needed to be built. Then we pivoted to being a marketplace, which meant sellers had to give us similar looking images and content, which meant we had to have a cataloging network in place, right? Today, where we are from our GCC experience perspective, I think that ecosystem is lacking. Therefore, the burden of actually creating content comes on the brand itself. The opportunity is actually to build an ecosystem of such, studios who are experts in that field, right? So if you look at it from a brand perspective, my core business is retail/brand. And for me, I have so many other avenues to invest in: logistics, technology, marketing as an overall theme. Within that, when content comes at a cost per unit, then it becomes really difficult. However, if you have an ecosystem of partners who are able to churn out whose core purpose is churning out content, then that's the starting point where you say that, for example, Swirl has a studio setup where we can actually say, outsource our requirements to, and then that helps us grow. And some of these expertise is very difficult to build in-house because of talent not being available or talent not being to par. All of those come through, right? So when you actually build a solution and you build it with an ecosystem, I think that's where a lot of problems will get solved. So for a lot of us, the starting point is always for our Mother Baby business, because we had an in-house creative team, it was easier for us to launch onto Swirl. But our furniture business, where we don't have an in-house content generation team, is a challenge, right? So therefore, it takes much longer for us to kind of invest in that business. So it's about whatever it takes for my business to get established, I'm willing to do it. However, I need those partners to get there.
Yeah. And I've also seen a lot of brands are, kind of democratizing content creation by not just relying on branded content but are also using UGC to create content, right? So content that gets created by your customers, by creators, but which are maybe, not your usual tier 1 kind of influencers, right? Just folks who really like the brand, who want to talk about it, who are happy to do it with just some kind of a barter in return, right? And they do a very good job, by the way, in terms of creating high quality content. So I think this is another bottleneck that I observed, that brands are also very protective about their own image, and hence, while they know that content creation is a bottleneck, they're not opening up the opportunity and give it to kind of democratize it so that they can give it to the market. Okay, here is our brand ambassador program, for example. Here are the products that we are willing to give away. Come and create content for us. And then you can moderate it, curate it, improvise it, so on and so forth. Do you think that, again, a lot of new age brands are actually, some of our customers like Jaya, that also I had the fortune of interviewing, their entire growth strategy is content. Like they use Swirl in the pre-purchase journey to bring awareness and educate their customers on how to use the product, or what is the before and after effect of using the product, and then during the purchase journey as pop-ups, etc., to guide them through the process. And then after purchase journey, they give them on how to reorder it, how to take care of the product, how to service it, blah blah blah. Right. So and all of that is UGC content. 100% is UGC. So they don't spend a dime of creating in-house content.
Right.
So I think there are so many different kinds of content: shoppable content, A+ content, UGC content, branded content. And if a brand start opening their doors to allow others to also build this, kind of branded content strategy slash UGC content strategy, then the cost of content creation will significantly come down.
Yeah. No, I think it's about understanding, like you rightly said, brands are very protective about their space, right? This is my brand, my space, my store, my experience, versus some of these use cases are actually platformized. You have to insert platform thinking into this, right? If you had to give that example of, so many types of content, then if a brand is going to pick and choose that this works for me or this doesn't, it probably becomes again a niche within a niche space, and therefore very difficult to find inroads into. Versus actually thinking of, so one of the challenges always is if the world is 90% retail and 10% digital, then from a 10% digital becoming the leader is a conversation, right? How do you move that 10% to 20%? If you look at it from that growth perspective, and you are saying this, and for that content creation and content-based growth is my go-to market strategy, then that really works because you insert it into your growth strategy, versus actually looking at it from a point of view saying that I'm going to be protective about where my brand is. Then it is always a challenge. So I think in some of the use cases that we've seen, what we have been able to do is figure out that from curating information perspective, right? Even if there was ratings or there was unidimensional reviews that were coming through, it's also important for somebody to be able to curate it, put it into the right forum, and then present it in the right way. A lot of the times, the bad news is considered to be not to be broadcast in public, and therefore brands really want to be protective more about the misinformation about them or bad information about them, bad reviews, etc. So they're more protective about those versus actually looking at it and saying, but in my user journey, this is really going to help. And that's where I think the difference between marketplaces and brands comes through. Marketplaces actually help a consumer realize that, this is poor ratings and therefore the seller is not my preferred seller,
right?
Versus actually somebody else being this brand being my preferred brand because it is better rated, etc. I think that is where the gap is today, and I think it's more philosophical in that sense, where brands are being more protective about their space, what kind of content they want to present, where the control over everything is really where the starting point is, versus actually saying, I will create enough checks and balances to enable this platform to operate independently, to be sure that it doesn't breach my guidelines, but gives my customers the right information that's needed. I think that framework somewhere needs to get developed. Some organizations have developed it very well, and that's where you see this very clear, transparent way of working with brands or with consumers. But most brands are in that journey where they're still learning, what is okay to platformize and what still needs to be controlled fully.
And in reference to that context, my team and I wanted to ask you, what are some of the challenges that you faced in implementing your, video strategies, and how were you able to overcome it? And what insights did you gain from this overcoming that you think could help benefit other retailers and brands?
Yeah, I think very good point. And when we look at some of these innovations come out of use cases which are on the go discussions, right? So they're not thought through completely to the end, right? Saying, today my requirement is to improve my conversions and I'm working on certain aspects. And therefore, this looks like a tool that I could utilize to improve conversions. And that's a short-term way of looking at things and saying, okay, let's try and see what happens. Versus actually saying, in my use case, in this mother-baby business, over a period of next 2 to 5 years, this is the consumer I want to go after. This is her behavior. This is how she's going to shop with me. This is how she's going to shop with me in store and online. And this is the user journey I want to build, within which these features are important. And that's how you then start building them in and start putting them. I think one of the challenges always has been, and which you actually brought out in the first part of the conversation, was KPIs which don't match, right? So for a business, views is very important, but conversion becomes the more important guiding principle, right? So that's where the challenge comes through, where how do you get the platform to adopt to the KPIs that the business wants to achieve at that point of time. And that's where I think some of those are. If we were to go back to the starting point, I think from our side, the clear strategy for a longer term from a brand perspective is very important. And from Swirl's point of view, it will be important to kind of showcase or demonstrate that the business KPIs that they are driving. And that's always going to be a challenge. I think it's more from customizing the product to brand's needs and saying this is, and I'm saying you've been very good at it. You've always come back and said, okay, then we'll do it like this. We'll figure out the solution for you. And this is in our pipeline. It will come through in 3 months' time. So as long as that conversation is happening and you're kind of building the bridge together, I think then that's where success is built, right?
Yeah, I think I would love to maybe get you to share more about your experience working with Swirl. How was it, and if there's anything that we could do better going forward?
Yeah, no, I think it's been a delight. You've always been very open, approachable. Not just you, but your team as well. I think everyone's been on the wall all the time. I remember that there have been times where we've kind of reached out to you at crazy times during the day, night, and the team's always been available, right? So that shows a lot of, hunger for building customer success. I think that's demonstrated throughout the organization, starting from you. I think you are very clear about your roadmap. That really helps, right? So your clarity of thought and vision in a partner is very, very important. I could come to you with my wish list, but if it doesn't match your growth trajectory, you're honest enough to tell me that this is not the way we are going to be looking at it. So that really helps. I think one of the challenges that I see for Swirl is because you are ahead of the curve in most consumers. People will look for successful implementations before they kind of start becoming more open. And that's where probably, some bit of patience is going to be needed at your end, probably. But I think you're in the right space. You got this sorted. You kind of answered a lot of the questions that folks in business have. some of these are going to be use cases which are going to be game changers for brands and businesses. Some of the brands also will have to be patient in understanding what KPIs they want to drive. But in your overall scheme of things, the way you present solutions to brands, I think you're right there. You understand the content dimensions across all 360 degrees, so is really helpful. And that thought leadership is really important for brands to kind of latch onto and follow. So,
yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that, Dharmendra. I think in closing, would love to get to know what are the retail trends that you are personally looking out for in 2024, and how do you think that these trends can integrate with any brand's business strategy?
yeah, I think brands are now moving. Omnichannel is the past. Everything now moving to unified commerce. So it's not just the journey of, online is separate and offline is separate. Today, everything is becoming so much more closer. I think one important aspect is going to be bringing both. And I think all organizations are in this journey. They're bringing a single view of inventory and a single view of consumer, and then marrying them together and building meaningful behavioral insights of, who's their customer, and then putting a bridge of loyalty on top of it, right? So most organizations have either gone through this churn of one loyalty program moving to another, or there are brands who are in that adoption phase where they're moving to adopting loyalty programs. But ultimately, the goal is to retain consumers and reduce your dependence on new consumers all the time. So it's going to be about experiences, and experiences will become digital first, even in store. So it's going to be that unified user journey. I think that's where retail is moving to. It's going to be a lot about, there will be examples of, the metaverse and things like those, which will at some point of time take a backseat because they're not real world.
Yeah.
But in the real world, retail will move to digital first in-store experiences, which are unified with the entire e-commerce journey. So that's where I see, at least in the short term, the world going.
Amazing. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. 100%. Thank you so much, Dharmendra. It was lovely having you today, and I look forward to doing this again sometime.
Thank you for having me, Kaizad. Always a pleasure talking to you, and I'm so much more energized after talking to you. So look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kaizad.